Hi, I'm Kathy. I'm right in the middle of preparing a special barbecue that is a really nice one to either prepare on a warm summer afternoon or even inside on a cold winter afternoon. Come into the kitchen and I'll show you what I'm making. Usually when people make barbecues, of course usually they use some sort of meat as the center of it. And of course meat is full of saturated fat and cholesterol. Today I'm just going to be barbecuing vegetables, which are nice and light. So for the protein dish in the meal, I'm going to make a protein salad, Oriental style. And the dressing for this is made with 2 tablespoons soy sauce, 2 tablespoons rice vinegar, 1 tablespoon sesame oil, 1 tablespoon safflower oil, 1½ teaspoons peanut butter, 1/4 teaspoon each of asafoetida, cayenne pepper, and honey, and 1/8 teaspoon of Japanese or Chinese hot mustard powder. Now all those ingredients just get put into a blender top and blended together. The 2 tablespoons of rice vinegar, you can find rice vinegar anywhere, usually in supermarkets in the Oriental food section, or for sure in a gourmet store, because so many more people are starting to use rice vinegar because of its nice mild flavor. Now this is my tablespoon of sesame oil, and this is roasted sesame oil that can be found also in Oriental food stores or the aisle of a grocery store. As you can see, it's a nice dark sesame oil because it's made from toasted sesame seeds. If you get just your plain sesame oil, it won't be the same. This adds a very toasted, rich flavor to the dressing. And this is the tablespoon of safflower oil. I usually do half this oil and half the sesame oil, just because the sesame oil is really strong flavored. And I need half a tablespoon or 1½ teaspoons of peanut butter for flavor also. And then 1/4 teaspoon each of, here's my 1/4 teaspoon, of asafoetida. Now if you can't find asafoetida, you can use half a clove of garlic here that's been crushed, 1/4 teaspoon of cayenne pepper for a dash of hotness, and this is 1/4 teaspoon of honey. Now this is my Japanese mustard powder. It's actually horseradish powder called musabi. And this is the really nice mustard that you get if you've ever eaten at a Japanese restaurant or a sushi bar. They serve a little mustard paste that kind of gets hot right at the top of your nasal passage for about a second, and then it disappears. Seems to kind of clear your head. So this adds a different kind of a hotness than the cayenne pepper does. Just blend these together. And now we're ready to make the rest of the salad. Now into this, I'm going to immediately toss about 8 ounces of age or aburagi strips. This is age, also known as aburagi, and it can be found, again, in most Oriental supermarkets or the Oriental section of your supermarket aisle. This is actually made from tofu. At most tofu factories, they keep some tofu aside and press a little more water out of it, and then they deep fry it to make these really nice golden cones. Now, if you've ever had sushi, sometimes you may have had some in a little golden cone, and that's what this is. But usually they boil that down to get the excess oil out. But today I'm using this in the unboiled form. And what I do is cut it in strips that are between 1/4 and ½ an inch wide, and maybe cut it in half again. Now you'll find that this is a very expensive product on the supermarket shelf. So what I try to do is buy this straight from the tofu factory. A lot of times they'll sell boxfuls of their They call them off-grade agis. And I don't know why they call them off-grade unless I've never been able to find something wrong with them. Probably takes a trained eye. They might just be cooked a little bit too much or too little or something like that. But anyways, just toss this into the dressing. And this is a sort of a salad, but it's full of protein. And usually when I plan a meal, I try to plan one of the dishes to be a protein dish. Of course, every food actually has protein in it. Everything from tomatoes on up to dairy foods. But we think of certain foods as being protein foods because they have much more protein quantity-wise in them, and they have enough of the right amino acids to make that protein digestible. Now this can be prepared a day or even 2 days ahead of time and covered and kept in the refrigerator. And if you're going to do that, you can also mix the next 3 ingredients together and keep them refrigerated separately. And then just a few minutes before serving time, add them. If you add them too soon, they'll just get real kind of soggy and make your whole salad soggy. You want to make julienne strips, very fine ones like this, of 1 cucumber. And I suggest using the Japanese cucumbers because they don't have as much water around the seed. And this is ½ a cup of slivered scallions or green onions, and 2 tablespoons of cilantro, also known in Hawaii as Chinese parsley. Use half of the cilantro to be tossed into the salad like this, and reserve the other half for garnishing. Now just toss these ingredients together right before serving time, because what happens is the juice in the cucumber tends to come out of it, and it will eventually make everything just really wet. So toss it together, and to serve it, put it on a serving platter like this. Whoops. And top it off with 1 large tomato that's been cut into wedges. Just sprinkle the tomato across the top. And then sprinkle also your reserved tablespoon of chopped cilantro or Chinese parsley, and also a couple of tablespoons of toasted sesame seeds. And this makes a real light yet protein-packed salad to serve either as a side dish or just the main protein dish in your whole meal. Now I'm going to be serving as the main feature in this barbecue vegetables. And that's why I made a point to make a salad that was packed with protein. This is one that I'm going to be serving, and I've got the vegetables already marinating in it. This is a Korean type sauce, and the marinade is made with ½ a cup of soy sauce, ¼ cup of honey, 2 tablespoons of oil, 1 tablespoon toasted sesame seeds, ½ a tablespoon of finely minced or ground garlic, ½ a teaspoon of black pepper, 2 tablespoons of chopped green onion, and 2 to 3 fresh serrano chilies. And I prefer using the red ones just because they're that much prettier. Just put those ingredients together and let the vegetables marinate in this for 15 or 20 minutes before barbecuing time. Now this is a sauce that I make that doesn't serve as a marinade, but mostly as a base on vegetables to be barbecued. And the vegetables I suggest to use here are fresh shiitake mushrooms, which are very expensive, but they're really worth, if you can only give 1 or 2 to each person, they're just a really nice treat. And this is bamboo shoots that are gotten in cans, and also eggplant slices, both of which have been sliced about 1/2 inch thick. And I brush these with a dressing made with 1/2 cup of water, 1/3 cup of mild white miso, 1/4 cup ground roasted sesame seeds, 3 tablespoons toasted sesame oil, 3 tablespoons safflower oil, 1 tablespoon of honey, 1 teaspoon of finely grated lemon rind. And all those ingredients just get mixed together. The main ingredient, or the base of this particular miso base, is miso. And I use the white miso, which is a lot milder and sweeter than other kinds of misos. There are a lot of different misos in the market. There are red ones and brown ones and all different kinds, but this white miso is especially good with vegetables. These are my toasted sesame seeds, the lemon rind, and all the other liquid ingredients, the oils and the honey. Now this just gets mixed together into a paste and will be used just to base the top of the vegetables with. Of course, the miso in here adds a tiny, tiny bit of protein also to each vegetable. This is kind of a Japanese sort of a spread or baste to be used on grilled vegetables. And that's why I'm featuring basically Japanese vegetables here. Whereas for your Korean marinade, I would suggest using bell peppers cut in quarters, tomatoes cut in half, eggplant again, and just whole regular mushrooms that can be bought in most grocery stores. Let me show you something. Now, the vegetables and the salad are really delicious when they're served with some sort of starch. So you can either make brown rice, I would suggest, just plain, so that the flavors of the marinades and sauces on the vegetables can really be featured at the meal, or make a Chinese type steamed bun. And to make the steamed bun, I'm using a bread recipe that we've used many, many times together, and is actually in one of my books. It's just a basic bread dough, and it's a quick bread dough because you don't have to wait for it to rise. Now this dough is made with 1 tablespoon baking yeast, 1 1/4 cups warm water, 1 tablespoon oil, 1/4 cup of honey, and 1/4 teaspoon of salt, which is optional. Just melt those things together till the yeast bubbles, and then add 3 cups of whole wheat flour and 1/2 teaspoon of baking powder. Now this dough, of course, can be baked, but the Chinese make wonderful little steamed buns, which is what I'm going to do. First, I'm going to oil my hands and the counter so it won't stick so badly. And then cut the dough in half. Now, you can make steamed buns that are different shapes and different sizes, and I'll just give you a few ideas of what you can do with this dough. Oops. You just want to make little breads that are big enough to put an individual piece of vegetable inside of. To make just whole buns, you might want to roll this half of the dough out into a roll that's about 1 inch in diameter, and then make cuts at inch intervals. Then just roll this in your oiled hands and place it on a 2-inch square piece of wax paper. Now, if you want to make little ones that will actually kind of open up like sandwiches, flatten this out a little bit more so it's about 3/4 of an inch in diameter, and cut them at 3/4 inch intervals. And then roll 2 small separate balls like this. Put one ball on top of the next, and just kind of flatten that down with the side of the knife. And this will steam into a little bread that will open up like a sandwich. Now there's another kind of a bun that you can make that's even fancier. And to make that, just take your half of the dough, another half, and roll it out to about 1/4 of an inch thickness, like this. Now, this whole sheet gets rolled out jelly roll style, or rolled up, I mean. Just roll it into itself like this to form that kind of a snake or log shape again. And again, we want something about 1 inch in diameter and cut at 3/4 inch intervals. Now this time, take your rolled parts of the 2 balls, set them together like this, and then bring all the edges up together and pinch at the top. And this makes a real pretty, almost rose-like bun. And these steam for 10 minutes. Now I'd like to suggest this nice light recipe to go along with this nice light barbecue that we're making. This is a recipe, I call it as the snow melts dessert. And some of it needs to be pre-prepared, and the rest of it needs to be made right before serving time. This pre-prepared section or part of the recipe can be done days or even a week ahead of time. You want to take red azuki beans, which are a Japanese kind of bean, and can be found in all Oriental food stores. You need 2 cups of these beans, and they should be soaked ahead of time, and they will swell up. As you can see, they just about double in size. Now, after they've been soaked for at least an hour in hot water or overnight, just at room temperature, you want to drain this water out and put the soaked beans into 7 cups of fresh water. And you can take that soaking water and use it as plant food, and it's really nice. The plants will like it. But what happens is when the beans are soaked, some of the things come out of it that form gas in the system, so you don't want to drink it or anything like that. Now, your 2 cups of raw beans that were soaked and drained, and your 7 cups of water, you add 1/4 cup of honey. And just cook this down. This needs to be cooked down for about 45 minutes without a lid on it at a very gentle simmer or a boil. And this is what you're going to end up with right here. If you can see the difference. This is in the 7 cups of water, and this is after 45 minutes of cooking. So quite a bit of the water does boil out. So this is what you want to keep. And what happens is the sweetness from the honey kind of soaks into the beans. You just want the bean parts, so drain the beans out and just reserve these cooked beans, refrigerate them for use later. And don't throw away the cooking water that the beans were cooked in with the honey. You can always keep this and reserve it to either thicken with a little agar-agar to make a little gel with, or you can throw it into sweet blender drinks, and it's really good, and it's also nutritious. Now, the other part of the dessert that needs to be pre-made and chilled is a tea. It's actually a tea syrup made with 3/4 cup of water and 1/2 cup of honey. You would never drink a tea that sweet, so this is a syrup, and it's going to go over our light dessert at the end. Just mix those 2 ingredients together, and then go out and get some caffeine-free green tea. The Japanese make different kinds of caffeine-free green teas. You can look for sancha, bancha, or kukicha teas. Cha means tea in Japanese, and those are just different kinds of green teas that you can get that are caffeine-free. Oops. Then be sure to read the label or the package that the tea comes in, and put twice the amount of tea required for 1 cup of tea. This particular bag calls for 1 tablespoon of tea per cup. So I'm using 2 tablespoons of tea. And this just gets steeped like you would any tea for 5 or 10 minutes. And then just lift your tea ball out and refrigerate the tea to make a nice syrup. I've got some tea syrup and the beans already cooled off here. Like I said, this step can be done days ahead of time. Let's go over here and I'll show you how to just cook the whole meal with a little pre-preparation like the marinating in the vegetables. This makes a quick and easy meal just to sit down to. I have some of the vegetables already cooked. Now with your Korean barbecue marinade sauce, you can just take the vegetables as they are because they've already been marinated and put them on the grill. And you might find for both of these recipes that it's easier to skewer the different vegetables for easier flipping. Then just grill the vegetables until they're nicely cooked, like this. And that's all you have to do with the Korean marinade vegetables. But for the vegetables that you're going to use for your miso sesame paste, you're going to want to put them on plain without the paste first and grill one side. Then when it's ready, flip each piece over, and while the bottom side is grilling, take a basting brush and just brush the very top of this, of each vegetable, with your miso sesame paste. Then that needs to be allowed to grill on the other side till it's done. Now these are done here, like this. And because you're barbecuing vegetables, this makes a nice light meal, and people can eat a lot of them usually. When the bottom side is done grilling, flip the miso side back over again. Whoops, I lost that one. And baste this top again. And then after you've just grilled the bottom for just a minute or two, flip this over and grill this side. So both sides of the miso paste get grilled. And then it's ready to serve. And I suggest serving this with just a sprinkle of toasted sesame seeds on top. And you can serve this with your protein salad and your steamed buns, especially the ones that split up like sandwiches, so you can wedge individual pieces of vegetable. Now to make the dessert, I'm using a shaved ice machine, which can be found in a lot of your Japanese import stores. This is a home model, which isn't very expensive, and will offer your family hours worth of refreshments. Just grind away. Just grind enough to make about 1 cup per serving of snow cone ice, and then pour about 1/6 or 1/8 of your tea syrup on top of this, and sprinkle a few spoonfuls of beans. And this makes a really refreshing dessert. This snow cone machine also gives hours worth of work for your children to do, and also nice refreshments. You can get fresh juice concentrates, frozen juice concentrates without sugar in them in any grocery store, and they can pour that on top of these snow cone or ices as well. I'd like to leave you with this very refreshing and light dinner, and also this food for thought. In commenting on modern society, Albert Schweitzer wrote, 3 kinds of progress are significant for culture: progress in knowledge and technology, progress in the socialization of man, and progress in spirituality. Of the 3, the last is the most important.
To get your copy of Kathy's new 750-page cookbook, The Art of Dieting Without Dieting, send a check or money order for $21.95 plus $2 for postage and handling to Kathy's Kitchen, P.O. Box 1122, Glendale, California, 91209. If you prefer to use your MasterCard or Visa, call toll-free 1-800-331-6161.
Tomorrow, the origins of man. Where did we come from? What did our ancestors look like? The mysteries of mankind. An all-new National Geographic special tomorrow night at 7.